Welcome, everybody, to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. It is Thursday, January the 4th. I'd like to welcome back my partner in crime for the last few years on this channel, Mr. Doug Upstone. Doug was recovering from some health issues. We're glad to see he's back, number one. And most of all, we're glad to see he's okay, number two. So, Doug, welcome back, my friend. Always great to see you.
Yes, well, I can't tell you how happy I am to be back in the saddle here, Ross, with you again. And yeah, wasn't what I was looking for, but sometimes we have to deal with the hand that we're dealt. And so all in all, things are going well, going in the right direction. There's still a few more steps that will come up along the way, but that's another thing for another day. But hey, the most important thing we're here to talk about is Week 18 of the NFL season, the last week, and lots of various playoff things going on. So that certainly makes it of interest on multiple levels. And we're going to be covering the two Saturday games on ESPN, which should be great.
Yeah. And yes, as Doug just alluded to, we'll be looking at, Doug will be touching upon the really important game for both teams in Houston Texans versus the Indianapolis Colts, game that we played at Indianapolis on Saturday evening. I'll be looking at the game between Pittsburgh and Baltimore. In Pittsburgh, there's 5 different scenarios in which they can make the playoffs, and all of them involve them winning first. A loss, there's no escape hatch, as they like to say. So Pittsburgh in a must-win situation. But, Doug, we've talked about this time and time again over the last few years, these Week 18, Week 17, when it was just 16-game regular season schedule, and how difficult it is and how we usually back off in the final week of the regular season. I mean, for example, you're looking at, Baltimore. We're going to be talking about this in a second, but Baltimore already has the number 1 seed locked up, obviously, by looking at the point spread. Lamar Jackson's definitely not playing, along with some other frontline players. In Pittsburgh, they need the game for their lungs, because that's the only thing that's going to give them life going into the Sunday card. So your thoughts in terms of it, and again, for those of you who haven't heard over the last couple of years, your thoughts in terms of the last week of the NFL regular season and your approach. Why don't you share that with them?
Sure. The first thing I do is I literally any game that is absolutely meaningless to both teams, cut it. Okay. Don't have any interest in it whatsoever. I don't want to guess, as to what I think will be the outcome. So always looking for games with teams that have something to play for, at least one of them. Okay. In this case. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to play on those teams, because as we have seen any number of different times that, they have to win, so they're going to play good. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times that does not work out, for those types of teams, and especially if favorites having to cover spreads, and particularly if they end up being on the road, because the number one thing that has to happen, if talking about those teams, unless they bury an uninterested opponent from the start, if they keep them interested and keep them around, they'll want to play. They'll send somebody out at halftime to turn the car off, for example, as opposed to just having it running so they could leave right when the game's over.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, that's one of the main things I look for, is just teams that that have an interest level of wanting to play and trying to read the tea leaves. I mean, geez, I can't believe in a season full of backup quarterbacks, there's going to be, in some instances, backups for backups, this week. So that creates a interesting dilemma for a lot of, from the sports handicapping perspective. What are your thoughts on this, Ross?
Yeah, I mean, along the same lines. At the end of the day, I would caution people, just because one team needs the game much more than the other is not a guarantee they're going to win, let alone cover. So just keep that in mind. There's no brainer scenarios that a lot of people think that they could use in these types of situations, and it just doesn't hold true, folks. If that was the case, we'd only bet Week 18 of the NFL regular season and take the rest of the year off. If there was that much of assuredness that one team, just because they needed the game for playoff implications or to win a division title, as opposed to some team that's out of the playoff race or has already locked up a seed and can't improve their seeding. So that's one thing to be leery of. As opposed to Doug, I may use some games along the way. And when I say plural, it's over the course of time. And I'm not necessarily indicating that this is going to take place for me on Sunday or Saturday. But the bottom line is in terms of two teams that are out of the playoff picture completely. If one team is finishing the year real strong, and there's an indication to me that the other team is just playing out the string, or even carrying it one step further. They had high expectations going into the year. They failed to make the playoffs, and there's that emotional letdown, especially if they were eliminated from playoff contention like a week or two ago. You know what I'm saying? So there's a little bit of a hangover there. Those are the types of scenarios I might look for in terms of two teams that have nothing to play for. And I like to use my NBA scenario down the stretch here for games such as I just mentioned and Doug alluded to, where I like to look at if a team is eliminated, teams are eliminated in the NBA playoff contention in the last month of the season. Not necessarily mathematically eliminated, but realistically eliminated or mathematically eliminated. There's teams tend to play looser in those types of situations, and defensive intensity doesn't seem to be at the same level. Well, I look for situations that I may be able to identify where a game might have some value in going over. Okay. It's not an automatic scenario for me like the NBA. And as opposed, I like to use that scenario or that correlation with the NBA and the NFL in week 18, with the exception of this, folks. Keep in mind, in the NBA, the same 5 players on the court have to play offense and defense. So when I say defensive intensity may not prevail in those types of scenarios in the NBA, there's 11 separate players on the defensive side of the ball where that may not apply. So, and we're going to see some practice squad players in week 18, guys that are going to be given a shot. I think that scenario will come up in the Baltimore Ravens situation against Pittsburgh. And I don't want to go too deep into this, Doug, but you got to look at teams' quality depth. And these guys, let's face it, I don't. If they're not starters, they're still getting paid, right? Both teams are getting paid, and these guys are going to be hungry. They may be getting their first opportunity to participate in a regular season game, or their opportunities have been limited throughout the course of the season. So a lot of things to consider. Now, do I err on the side of caution much more in week 18 than the rest of the schedule? Absolutely so. So there you have it. Any other?
Yeah, the only thing I could to buffer, or I guess to right along with your point, the reason I have why I eliminate games, and it's kind of like week one and week 18. From that standpoint, I've just gotten beat up. So it's like,
no, I hear you.
I'm tired of I'm trying to looking at games that I don't win. Okay, from that standpoint. So it's like, that's why I've gone on those. The
thing is, it comes on the heels of having us dealing with the bowl season, and all these games that meant nothing in the bowl season that didn't have, weren't a New Year's Day bowl game, right. Or a group of 5 teams playing other group of 5 teams and 18 players opting out. I think we get a little gun shy after a couple of years of this bowl season when we get into week 18, especially if you've been on the wrong end of some of those decisions during the bowl season. So again, I know that seems a little absurd to make that comparison, but from a mental standpoint, mental standpoint is important in our business because it goes along with focus, right? And it goes along with how we think. So anyway, Doug, let's get right to it. Before we get to your game, Let me remind the folks, our sponsor site is gamblersworld.net. You'll find myself and 9 other great handicappers at that site. And we give you our personal guarantee that if you don't win, you don't make a profit. We will credit your account back the exact amount of what you spent on that specific purchase. And that applies to all subscription plans of 30 days or fewer, or single game or multi-game daily packages. That's gamblersworld.net. And no, Doug's not on that site because he's at docsports.com and he's contracted there. But if he wasn't, we certainly would have him aboard. But Doc Sports, again, folks, one of the longest surviving sports services in the country, if not the longest, somewhere at 53 years, Doug, I believe.
Yeah, 53, yeah.
Doc's been in business. And in this business, if you've been around that long, longevity speaks volumes in this business. Because me and Doug been around 20 plus years now, and we've seen a lot of people come and go in that 20-year period. So it's not the easiest business to have longevity in, and it's not the easiest business to have sustained success. So when you see a company like that around for 50-something years, or you see handicappers like us that have been in the forefront for the last 20 years, that should tell you something, folks. All right, Doug, let's get to the Houston and Indy game. And a lot on the line for both teams here. Houston getting C.J. Stroud back, which was a nice bonus for them. Indianapolis played very good down the stretch. I mean, 6-2 in their last 8. They started the season by losing 4 of their first 5 at home. Since then, they've won, I believe, 3 straight at home. But enough of my opinions on this game. What matters right now is yours. And right now, Houston is a 1-point favorite on the road in this contest.
Yeah, the winner is likely to be in the wild card. Okay, so that's the first thing that matters in this game. And if whoever the winner ends up being, by chance, if Jacksonville would happen to lose at Tennessee, they would become the AFC champion, AFC South champion. And so there's a lot riding on the line. But first off, for these teams, you got to win the game. Okay, the first one. So Colts come into this one. They won the earlier meeting between these teams 31-20, thanks to building a 28-10 halftime lead in H-Town and coasting the victory. That was game 2 of the season. Houston, the Texans, are a far different team today than what they were then. Right now, we know that C.J. Stroud is a known quantity at quarterback. Some of the offensive numbers have tailed off a little bit in the latter part of the season for any number of different reasons, but this Indianapolis defense, Ross, is beatable. They're number 24 in total defense and number 22 in yards per point. And there is a overlooking flaw within the context of that defense that is hard to miss. The Colts are 27th in stopping the run, and opposing teams are absolutely fearless in rushing the ball on the Colts, because they give up the 3rd most rushing attempts in the NFL this season. Now, Houston is not a great running team. They only come in at number 22. But I think in this case, they're not going to give up on the run. I think they're going to stick with it, because if they stick with it and it can at least keep the down and distance in their favor, that really opens up the passing game for the Texans. Now, since allowing 56 points in their first 2 games, Houston's DeMarco Ryans defense has allowed more than 28 points just 3 times. In their last 14 games, they've only given up 19.8 points per game. Houston's run defense ranks number 4. And if they can contain that Colts run offense, I think that's a situation that helps set up the Colts to be beaten, because we know the up and down nature of Gardner Minshew, both home and away. Okay, I would like, you'd like to think he'd play a little bit better at home, but that's not necessarily the case. Texans come into this one 7-0, straight up and against the spread in division away games recently, while the Ponies in this one in the AFC South of late 6-12-1. Ross, I'm going to give the 1 point on the road with the Houston Texans in this one.
I agree with you, Doug. The notes that I had on this game were one of the things that I had circled was the fact that, Indy depends, not totally reliant on the run, but that's a major part of their offense. And Gardner Minshew is an adequate backup quarterback that has a lot of starting experience, and give him credit. He's performed quite well under the circumstances this year. But he's not a bona fide starting quarterback per se. He's not a quarterback that you're going to take and depend on to be your franchise guy. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. Yet, he's a very valuable commodity in the modern day NFL right now, that sometimes the backup quarterback position gets overlooked with all the injuries that go on these days. Anyway, having said all that, I mean, you mentioned Houston, how good they are against the run. They only allow 88 yards per game and 3.2 yards per carry. If you make Indianapolis one-dimensional, I think that would highly favor the Houston Texans. So I agree with you. Doug likes the Houston Texans minus the 1 over Indianapolis. The only thing I won't agree with Doug is I would lay the 120 on the money line with Houston.
Of course.
So, and we're laughing because we've had these discussions about using a point spread in the money line many times throughout the course of the season. Don't forget, folks, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you'll see a black subscribe button right underneath the video box. If you're on your mobile device or your smart TV, click on that. It'll get you subscribed absolutely free. If you happen to be on your PC, you'll see a WC logo, which stands for Winner's Circle. And you just click on that. It will serve the same purpose, and it's absolutely free to do so once again. And take one step further for your convenience. Not only if you're new, but also if you've subscribed in the past and haven't taken this measure, go into your YouTube settings. Click on the alert notification bell for the the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast, or Sports Betting Channel, I should say, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our 6 shows that go on weekly on our channel going up on the station. Just a friendly reminder too, folks, tomorrow is our live show, 3 p.m. Eastern time. I know a lot of you like to comment on all the archive tapes that we do for our podcast, and that's fine. We're more than encouraging that you do so. However, this gives you the opportunity to get an immediate answer. So tune in to our live show tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be discussing the college football national championship game between Michigan and Washington. We'll also be looking at that huge AFC East matchup between the Bills and the Dolphins, and Doug's beloved Green Bay Packers, who need to win against the all of a sudden red-hot Chicago Bears. So a lot to be covered tomorrow, and a lot of opportunity for those of you who have questions, who have comments, and want a response, and we'll give it to you immediately, time permitting. All right, Doug, let's get to my game. And again, the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I already touched upon the fact that Pittsburgh's got 5 scenarios in which they can make the playoffs, and all of them are imperative and include them winning. If Pittsburgh loses this game, they're out completely. Now, it goes back to just because one team needs the game much more than the other, just because one team needs the win to make the playoffs and the other team, in this case, Baltimore, is already locked into the #1 seed, does not mean that they're automatically going to win, let alone cover as a favorite, and even more so cover as a road favorite of more than a field goal. Because right now, Pittsburgh is a 4-point favorite in this game. Let's not forget, I mean, it's obvious that Baltimore is going to sit some top-line players when you look at this line. They would not be a 4-point underdog at home against Baltimore, and I think anybody who knows anything about sports betting, that's extremely obvious to them. Also keep in mind, folks, that the backup quarterback for Lamar Jackson, who right now is a prohibitive favorite to win the MVP award, is Tyler Huntley. And Tyler Huntley has plenty of experience in Baltimore as a starting quarterback, because there's been several instances where Lamar Jackson has been on the shelf due to injury, whether it be for extended period of time or in the short term. And he's even had some playoff experience in that regard. So it's not like you're going to get a green quarterback coming in, an unproven quarterback. Of course, there's a big disparity between Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley. but still Huntley is more than capable of getting the job done in this role. Let's not forget, I mentioned quality depth. This is a Baltimore organization, in my opinion, that has been one of the best in terms of quality drafts that they do on an annual basis. They just keep to build up talent, and they're astute in the way they go about things in the draft, and it's paid dividends in terms of quality depth. So as I alluded to before, especially on the defensive side of the ball, we're looking at the top line players for Baltimore are pretty healthy. But when you look at their backup situation, there's a lot of players that are questionable due to injury. And that's where you might see some practice squad players suit up for Baltimore on Sunday or on Saturday. And I certainly would also take that into consideration. But also Baltimore's situation much different than a lot of other teams, most teams in the NFL, because of their depth. Here's the thing. It wouldn't shock me if Pittsburgh wins the game because everything is on the line for them and Baltimore really has nothing to play for. I just think this is too heavy a number at 4. If Pittsburgh wins this game, I think it will be much closer than Steelers fans would like. And I would not be shocked whatsoever if the Baltimore backups step up to the plate and knock off the Pittsburgh Steelers in this situation. Mason Rudolph's been a nice story, Doug, but we've seen a lot of backup quarterbacks come in and be a nice story for the short term. And then all of a sudden they come back down to earth a little bit. And I think this might be one of those situations coming up on Saturday afternoon in Baltimore. I'm going to take the Ravens minus the 4, Doug, over Pittsburgh.
Well, Ross, in this case, I'm going to 100% agree with you on this one. I know that's probably a little shocking to you, but in this case, here's part of the reason why. You're talking about Tyler Huntley as the quarterback, and the one thing that John Harbaugh has set up with this team, and particularly with this position, is that there is no change in how the offense is run. It is run virtually exactly the same, except for a few minor things in terms of what each quarterback does well, okay, whether it be as a runner or thrower. So the continuity aspect is a big thing. And so whether you're the receivers that are playing in the game, whether you're the offensive lineman playing in the game, you got the only thing that's different for the most part is the cadence is going to be different, okay? I mean, that's the only thing that really changes. So from that standpoint, that's a big deal. The other thing, too, that just always appeals to me with Baltimore in these scenarios is we all know John Harbaugh. Now, I think this past year or two, it's dropped off some, but this guy has always played to win literally every game that he
even in the preseason, right, Doug?
That's what I'm talking about. Okay. In the preseason, this guy is always looking to win. And so there will be no difference in mindset for them coming into this game. So from that standpoint, I agree. I think Pittsburgh could win the game. Pittsburgh and Baltimore games historically, and I'm going back 20 years now, there's been a lot of 3-point outcomes, okay, in these games over the years. And I would not be surprised if that is the case in this one. Maybe Pittsburgh wins, but I think it's going to be a really tight game. And as you said, basically, Baltimore is still going to come to play, and I think they do, and cover the spread.
And that's some good points about John Harbaugh and his wanting to win, even if you're playing checkers with him. And also the fact that there's hardly any change in offensive philosophy with Huntley at quarterback as opposed to Lamar Jackson. Look, Lamar Jackson there's a reason why he's in the running for the MVP award. So let's not get caught up with the fact that we're trying to imply that Huntley is in the same league with Lamar Jackson. No, but he's the same style of quarterback is what Doug's alluding to. He's a mobile quarterback. The RPOs are still going to be there with Huntley at quarterback. He's going to be able to extend plays. He's going to be able to take off and move the chains with his legs on occasion. So that's what we're referring to. Yep. It's not like you're having to change your game plan or your offensive style because you go from one quarterback to the other. You're going from a real mobile quarterback, the likes where you're running RPO 20% of the time, maybe, to a guy who is a pure drop back passer. That's not the case in this instance. So very good points, Doug. And I appreciate that because you make me look a lot smarter than I really am. In any event, I am going to take the Baltimore Ravens plus the 4 over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Doug Upstone likes the Houston Texans minus the point over Indianapolis on the road. Both games take place on Saturday. The Indy game will be at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, and the game that I just discussed, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, at 4:30 Eastern time. Doug, tell the folks a little bit about what you may have going on at Doc Sports for the upcoming weekend. Any hot streaks you like to share, or anything else from a promotional standpoint you would like to share with the audience as well?
I will be more than happy to. So this NFL weekend coming up, I have 3 plays. I just literally finished before we started the show. On those, I'm going to come back with a 6-unit best bet on Sunday. And so since week 4 of the NFL season, I am hitting 75% of my best bets rated 6 units or higher. Okay. So I have been killing it on these best bets. And this is not news. This is something I've done pretty much annually, maybe not quite 75%, but still something I have come through, and I expect to come through with that again as part of a 3-game package. As far as some of the other sports, Ross, happy to report, got some really nice things going. NBA 12-5 run. Okay. Most recently. So making some money there, a little over $2,000 worth of profit in the NBA recently. NHL, even better, 70%, okay, in the NHL most recently. So on a really nice run there. And in fact, on Thursday night, I actually have a 3-pack going. So you can pick that up at the Doug Upstone page at Doc Sports as well. College basketball recently over the last, I think it's like 8 or 10 days, 63.6%. So making some headway in college basketball. And of course, I'm never going to forget about the props, okay, because since late October, I'm hitting 65% on all props. And in the NFL props, now this is combined within the context of that, I'm hitting 71% on NFL props. Assuredly, I will have one this Sunday. Don't know right yet if it's going to be a best bet or not, but certainly stop by the Doug Upstone page at Doc Sports, and you'll see everything you need to know about all of this information I just gave you. Ross,
great.
Now I know it's
Great
your
stuff.
turn. Take it away.
Yeah, it is my turn. But again, folks, don't forget to check out Doug at DocSports.com. He is not part of the GamblersWorld.net site, but that's because he's under contract. So don't lose sight of that. In Doc Sports, not only with Doug, but they have 9 or 10 other great handicappers at that site as well. But our favorite, and we're more biased to Mr. Upstone. All right, having said all that, I am on a nice roll with my college basketball picks right now, 19-7 with my last 26, and dating back to last year, 48-30, which is good for 62%. I believe that goes back to March 10th of last year. And in all sports, folks, I've just been on a nice run. I mean, I had a rough weekend where I went 4-8, but then I bounced back on Sunday with a 4-1 day in the bowl games. And then yesterday I gave out 2 college basketball picks and hit them both. They had NC Asheville minus the 10, and they just blew out USC Upstate. Again, small conference, you find value sometimes in these small conference games. They won that game 95-67 as a 10-point favorite. And also I had the Nebraska Cornhuskers as my top play last night. And they beat Indiana by 16 on their home floor. So on Nebraska's home floor, I should say. So college basketball is rolling. The NBA is on a nice run as well. All NBA picks since April the 12th of 2022 are 67-46. That's good for 59%. And dime players over that course of time up $1,542. And on all sports since August the 4th, GamblersWorld.net and all other sites I'm on. It's on a nice roll of 237-173. That's good for 58%, folks. I don't give out big money line chalks, so keep that in mind. And that's indicative of my dime players over that course of time being up over $46,000. So you can find me at GamblersWorld.net. Don't forget, you can get my single game or multi-game daily packages. That's great, folks. We appreciate any business you give us. And when, again, the problem is that if you catch us on a bad day, it's not indicative of how we could do for you over the long haul. So entertain the thought of going 3 days, 7 day, or 30 days with me. Great pricing plans, $99 for 3 days, $175 for 7 days, $399 for 30 days. And that'll give you a better indication, give you a better opportunity to not only make more money, but better opportunity to make money in general. And then keep in mind and have a peace of mind knowing that if you catch me in a bad time, our picks are guaranteed. So whatever you spent on the package you purchased from me or any other handicapper at the site, you will be credited to your account. And you can use that any which way you like, on any handicapper you like, and at any time you wish. Doug, glad you're back, my friend. And it's good to see you. And I'd like to wish you and your family all the best. And you have a fantastic weekend. Knock 'em dead, my friend, because one of the best handicappers in the country right there, Doug Upstone. And we're very, very fortunate to have him on our channel. Till the next time, which will be tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time, folks. Don't forget, live show. You can comment, you can question, you can insult, whatever you want to do, okay, and get an immediate response. And we'll be talking college football championship game, Washington, Michigan. We'll be talking Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers. Until then, take care and God bless, folks.